Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz. I'm Indy's Trusted Servant, Danny O'Malia. I want to thank Ryan Henry of InspireSmall.biz for giving me the opportunity to do my interviews in the YouTube format on his new website. What is Indy's Trusted Servant? Well, that's me, Danny O'Malia. I do customer service training and keynote speaking about customer service and organizational culture, all of which I learned from the master, my late father, Joe O'Malia, back in the O'Malia Food Market days and even before that. The Indy's Trusted Servant Show on InspireSmall.biz I like to describe as lively local small biz and community talk where you can feel the pulse of Indy. And my guest today is a longtime friend and fellow class of 65 Cathedral High School graduate Bob Teipen of Teipen CPAs and Catholic Radio. And Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Danny. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. First of all, tell us about Bob Teipen. Give us a little historical perspective and how you became a CPA and started Teipen CPAs, and then you can morph into the Catholic Radio thing.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I lived in Indianapolis all my life and grew up on the east side. Went to St. Philip Grade School, St. Philip Mary, Cathedral High School, Butler University. And after Butler, I started to work for a local CPA firm. Worked for them for about 7.5 years, and the opportunity came out that, we're going to part ways, and what are we going to do now? And I like public accounting, so I decided, there's only one thing I've really always wanted to do is have my own business. And I thought, I don't know if this is going to be successful or not. I may fail. I may go bankrupt. Not the most pleasant thought.
Nah, not at all.
But I thought, if I never do this, I'm probably always going to regret it. So I went for it. And
how old were you at the time? About 30?
29.
29, okay.
29. I had a wife, and our third child was on the way at the time. And I asked her about that, prayed about it, and we decided let's go for it. And my wife was very supportive of it, and I'm thankful for that. The business has gone well. We started out modestly in my home, then graduated to what are now I think our fourth different office we've had, and each one a little bit larger as time went on. And
where's your office located these days?
We're at 7340 East 82nd Street in Castleton, just east of Castleton Square Mall. And we've been there since 1995. And that's our most recent and hopefully our last office. I like it there. Works out well.
How many employees you got there at Teipen CPAs?
About 15 at this time. So it's been good. The business we've worked with small businesses all that time, and it's just been a good market for us. And but in time, I also got the call. You mentioned Catholic Radio. I've kind of gotten my younger partners involved. They're taking over the business at this point in time, and I'm kind of just dealing with some longtime clients. So my transition is almost complete. I haven't retired. I've officially retired, but I'm still doing some consulting work.
And taking care of your longtime clients.
Taking care of some longtime clients, that's right. And that's what I've enjoyed. I've really enjoyed the work, and I've been doing this for over 50 years now. So
tell us what got you started on Catholic Radio, how long ago that was, and then we'll talk about the specifics of what kind of programming and all that stuff.
Okay. Well, it was really an inspiration of the Holy Spirit. I just felt the call. I was prompted several times, if you look back in hindsight, of something to do something. And then in 1997, or I think it was 1998, I went to a retreat at Fatima Retreat House, and the priest there was talking about evangelizing. He said, evangelize now. I remember that phrase resonating in my head, and I thought, well, that's nice. I understand what he's saying, but what does that mean for me?
How do you do that?
How do I do that? In fact, I had a thought of that one time. My thought of evangelization was you stand up in a ladder or table and you speak to people in a public park. Well, I actually saw that in San Antonio, Texas, across from the Alamo. I saw a fellow standing on a milk crate preaching to people, but they were all drunks and pigeons. And I thought, I don't think this is what I'm called to do. But I received some other comments over time, or the promptings, and about radio. And then I decided to follow one, and followed up on them with different people, and they gave me some pointers as to how to get this started. And I thought this was going to be pretty straightforward. Not so much. It was a little more challenging. I got on the EWTN website, and they talked to me about that, or told us about.
Well, tell us what EWTN is.
EWTN is a international programming, Catholic programming. It's founded by Mother Angelica, who's now has since passed away, but has the most successful Catholic media network in the world that I'm aware of. She started in shortwave, and then she got into TV and then radio. And
shortwave had to be a long time ago.
Shortwave was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But we found out about it, and others have too. And when I first found out about it, the story was that there weren't that many Catholic radio stations around, and there was something like 15,000 AM/FM radio stations in the country. About 10% of those, or 1,500, were religious stations. But there were only, in 1995, there was only about 3 Catholic radio stations.
3 out of 15,000.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's not very many.
No. We had the airwaves cornered with Bishop Fulton Sheen. He was very popular back in that time frame.
And on television.
That's right. And but after that, no one ever stepped forward to take his place. The Protestants stepped in and did a pretty good job of capturing the audiences.
Oral Roberts.
yes, things like that. Exactly. Well, then Mother Angelica came along and started this programming, and starting literally out of a garage, and how she's expanded that is just really an incredible story in itself. Raymond Arroyo has put together a book on that, which is a good one to read, just talking about her life. And
really?
It's a fascinating read if you have any interest.
You know what the name of the book is?
It escapes me right at the moment.
Well, if you look up Raymond Arroyo, you can find it.
EWTN, Raymond Arroyo. Raymond Arroyo is still a commentator. He's the news commentator on the program, so he's still there. But it would be in the EWTN bookstore for sure. But anyway, it was a fascinating story about how she got this started and started working with local affiliates. And that's why in 1998 I had received that prompting. I started looking into radio stations more after reading, it was an article I read in the National Catholic Register about Catholic radio, and that caught my attention.
So Catholic radio is a national entity.
Yes. There's now, I think, close to 700 stations in the U.S. that are Catholic, some very small, some large, that covers, because we have a small one too, one called a low power station, and we now have 3 stations, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. But that was the prompting that we had, and I talked to people about it, and we decided how we're going to proceed with it, and I contacted Monsignor Shadle. He was then the Vicar General of the Archdiocese of Indianapolis.
Everybody knows Monsignor Shadle.
Monsignor. And it was. I wanted to make sure that I was in sync with the diocese, that I wasn't running afoul of them, which is a smart thing to do, because Monsignor later told me that some people had been calling in and asking about us if we were legit or not, because unfortunately there's some out there that might try to capitalize on the name. But we wanted to do everything in line with the Archdiocese of Indianapolis and the magisterial teaching of the Catholic Church. And that's been our objective from day one. And but anyway, it took 5 years, not the quick time that AWTN mentioned how to do this. I found out that in Indianapolis, our market is challenged. We have the larger frequencies that are around us in cities such as Cincinnati, St. Louis, Chicago, and that kind of limited the number of frequencies that are available to us.
Which this is a little bit of an aside, but you've always wondered why WIBC, which is no longer with us, you had a hard time getting, if you were a Pacer game at night sometimes, and that's the same issue, right?
That's right.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
Well, WIBC was an AM station, and AM stations are required by law to power down at sunset, and that's why you don't get the signal very well. It's a 50,000 watt station that covered central Indiana well during the day, but not.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. Well, they do that because of the signal. The AM signal travels much further, and they power it down so you're not overriding signals, cities 500 miles away or something. Because if you've ever been in your car late at night on a nice, cold, crisp morning or night, you can turn on a car radio and you're traveling. You can pick up stations from
Sometimes Tulsa, Oklahoma, or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Well, FM doesn't work that way. FM's is pretty much a line of sight, and so you don't get that bounce. You don't have to power it back. So we focused on an FM station. That was what we hoped to get.
Before I forget, what are the call letters of the station?
Call letters is W.
I mean the frequency,
The
90,
frequency,
right? Yeah,
89.1.
89.1
is our main station. We have another station at 90.9. That's out of Noblesville. Our first station, 89.1, is actually broadcasting from the tower site is in Coatesville, Indiana, which is about it's about 45 miles west of Indianapolis, the Monument Circle. So that's where we cover the west side well, but in the east side, not so well. And so we were looking for other frequencies. So we found 90.9, which is based in Noblesville, and we've since added 98.3 in Anderson.
Okay, and those have helped you expand your viewing or listening audience.
It does.
Yeah.
And that's all we can do. We've done everything we can with the frequencies that we have, so we want to get more coverage. I felt the objective was, to cover the state of Indiana. That was what I was hoping to do initially, but it's proving to be challenging to get that.
So what is the listening area if you take all those stations involved, just for the people that are watching, whether they know that they can reach the stations or not?
Well, the 89.1 will cover primarily western part of Indianapolis. It'll go north up to just not quite to Lafayette, and south, not quite to Bloomington.
Okay, that's a big swath there.
It's a powerful station. It's
Yeah.
23,000 watts, and it'll go west. It'll go almost to Terre Haute. Also, the problem is we couldn't go too far east with that station because there's another 89.1 in Greensburg. And under the FCC rules, you have to protect each other, so you can't just open it up and say, well, why? Because we've been asked, well, why not just turn up the power? Well, we have to have a FCC approval to do that.
So the only way to expand the listenership is to get more stations.
At this point, there are opportunities from time to time to take a station and expand it up to the higher power, but those situations are rare. They take some certain engineering and sometimes you can get that job done, but for the most part, everybody's after this. The big guys are after the same frequencies, and they have the same objective. They want to cover everything they can. So we're a small operation, and we just kind of try to fit in between some of the bigger stations and do what we can. And we don't have the budget. The big guys, those stations Indianapolis large stations, they may be $20 million stations, and we don't have that kind of money. It's all benefactor supported station, listener supported station. So we do what we can with what we have, and we're always looking for new opportunities to expand. We're specifically on the east side of Indianapolis and the south side. We know we're weak in those areas, and the north side is not too bad, but we have a couple things that we're working on now that may come about. Not in a position to make any announcements. It's too premature, but we're always looking.
Bob has always been very conservative.
Yes. Well, that's the nature, I guess, and maybe that's why the Lord's called me into this. I don't know.
There you go. Well, before we get into programming, how do you guys stay in business? You have fundraisers.
We do.
You should talk about that for a couple of seconds. So tell us what kind of fundraisers you have, when they are, how people can get involved, and so forth.
Well, we have the two big events annually, and that is the golf outing, which is in May, right before Memorial Day. We have it on the Tuesday before the Memorial Day weekend, and that's been a good event for us. And we also have a Catholic radio dinner, an annual dinner, and that dinner is generally in the August-September time frame. And we have a speaker, and we have a silent and live auctions. So those two events bring in some money. We put out several appeals during the year. We have a share-a-thon a couple times, twice a year, generally in the spring and in the fall. And then we just requests from donors.
Right, right. Well, on the golf outing and the dinner, if
Yes.
somebody wants to get involved in those, is there a good place to find out more about it? Website, phone numbers, whatever.
Website, CatholicRadioIndy.org is our website, and everything is on there. And our director of marketing development, Val Bindle, she is available at our office at that number. So it's those are opportunities to. We're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for ideas into how to raise funds.
Is there a phone number for Catholic Radio?
There is. It's 317-870-8400.
Okay.
Is the local number. And we have an office in Castleton. So we have people come to the office to help out. Some volunteers have been very faithful. We're thankful for all of that. So it's been a good ride.
And I understand you have a new general manager, and you might want to talk about the retired general manager, Jim Ganley, for just a minute.
Yeah, Jim Ganley. I met Jim at at a mass, actually, when I was given permission by my pastor to talk about Catholic radio. That was another way I promoted it.
Okay.
And the story there is that actually it was the very first mass. It was a vigil mass on a Saturday evening, and I gave the talk, and Jim walked up to me after mass, and he introduced himself and said he's in radio, and if he ever got the station going, that he'd be interested. And that was all very nice. That was around 1999, and
it was right when you were getting going with the thing.
well, when it was going.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
We didn't have anything. It was the very first. I mean, really, he's the first one, and it's another thing we call those God incidents. He was put there for a reason.
Yep.
Because as it goes full circle, we'll find out how that worked out. Because fast forward 3 years later, we had been in conversations with an individual who had a station and decided to put it up for sale, and it was 89.1. And the broker at the meeting, we worked the deal out. We shook hands on it. We had a deal, and he turned around to me and he said, "Okay, now you have a radio station. You're going to need a general manager." And I said, "Yes, that's right, I do." He says, "I know who you good general manager for you, and you know him too." I said, "Oh." At that time, I'd forgotten about Jim. He mentioned
So
Jim.
he came to you before you ever got the station on the air, really?
That's right.
Right, okay,
He did.
okay.
Because this was 3 years. I met him, and about 3 years later, before we actually got the station, in fact, I think it was 5 years before, from day one all the way through. But I met Jim early on, and it was Ed Railing was the broker. Well, it turns out that Ed Railing was the reason that Jim was in town that night at St. Lawrence Catholic Church. He lived in Terre Haute. He came to Indianapolis. He went to mass there. They socialized with the Railings and went out to dinner.
Oh, okay. Boy, that is God working, right?
It is.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I thought that was clearly laid out. That's the way it was supposed to be. And he was with us from the inception. The day first we were on the air, for the first day on the air, all the way to the present. He decided that he wanted to retire, and we had a nice going away party for him at our Catholic radio dinner last August. And he decided he wants to stay on as a consultant for us. But one of our long-term board members, Gordon Smith, has decided to become the general manager. So that's worked out well for us because we were very much concerned about replacing Jim and his valuable experience over the years. And Gordon's proved to be a good compliment to that.
I run into Jim every Thursday night at Grand Park. My grandson and his grandson play lacrosse on Thursday nights at Grand Park, although the season has just ended. So I've still seen him recently. So that's a little bit about the folks that work at the Catholic radio, and definitely I love the story about the timing of Jim coming on and you getting started, and God's plan for Jim and the station and you and everything. And we wish Gordon the best in his new position. So tell us about the programming on Catholic radio.
Okay.
A little bit. Some of the highlights.
Well, we have a number of programs primarily focused around evangelization. They're talk shows. Some of the shows that I like Dr. David Andrews, who's on in the afternoon. He's a convert, but he's very knowledgeable about the faith. He answers questions from listeners. on the air, and I think he does it very well, does it very nicely.
Interesting,
Very
interesting sidebar there.
Yes.
My mom's a convert, so I've always been interested in converts. And you know what? On average, they make better Catholics than we born Catholics. They decided to do it.
That's right.
We were kind of forced into it.
That's right. That's right. I'm a cradle Catholic, but I'm going to say some of the converts put me to shame.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom was one of them.
Well, we have, there's other programs as well. These are the national programs that EWTN puts on. Teresa Tomeo, John Ed Williams, and Dr. Ray Garundi, the Catholic Answers. Those are probably some of our more popular shows. Then one of the things I did learn about radio was that you want it to be locally based as much as you can. So we've tried to put in some local programming, but from a standpoint of production, that sounds easy, but it's expensive to put that on.
Yeah,
It takes a lot of time, a lot of commitment for individuals to put on a program. So we have put on a few that are locally based, and those have gone over well. Catholic Cave and Bridget Eyre has her show as well, and they're all several times a week, several hours during the week. And all of these have helped, I think, draw in some folks, volunteers as well as listeners. And, we get some nice comments about some of the programs that are on. So,
is the station a 24-hour station?
It is 24
It is
hours.
24 hours.
Yes.
And if you go to the website, you can get the schedule when the programs are on.
That's right.
Give us the website one more time.
Okay. It's CatholicRadioIndy.org. And Indy is INDY, Catholic.org. And yes, all the information is out there on that website, talking about some of the programs, et cetera, and how to contact us if you have any questions. So we encourage that if anybody does. And so, that's what we're here for, to try to help people understand the Catholic faith and be drawn into the Catholic faith more deeply. Because I've said all along what our objective is to catechize and evangelize. So we're trying to teach the faith to Catholics and non-Catholics alike, and to evangelize as our Holy Father Pope John Paul II was really promoting in the year 2000. He was talking about we had the year of evangelization then, and he had been promoting that in a major way. And our Catholic Church has always been about evangelization. It's just we as Catholics aren't always the best.
we sometimes have a little bit of a problem with that, right?
That's right. We don't listen to our own teachings on that, but we're comfortable in our faith. I think most of us are, and that's I'll put myself in that category. But I don't always do a good job of talking to others. Maybe that was a part of the prompting for me to get into radio. Not that I like radio. I like my accounting work, my consulting work. I enjoy that. Radio, I'll leave that to the pros like Jim. They do a better job of that than I am. But I figured this is something I could use some of my management skills. The Lord has blessed me with that, so I could try to bring the station to the fruition and to bring us successfully through the financial quagmires that we've had to go through. But it's all work.
Well, I commend you. The whole entrepreneurial bent of starting your own CPA firm. Kind of reminds me of my dad. And then the whole thing with the Catholic radio, starting that from pretty much scratch. And I know that we could have a whole separate show on the technicalities and the federal communications, rules and so on and so forth that you had to circumnavigate all of that to get started.
That's right.
And you have to continue to worry about that stuff as things go on. You want to make any more comments about that?
Well, yeah, I always thought there was a certain irony in there because my accounting work, I do a lot of it's tax oriented. So I'm dealing with government bodies, the IRS in particular, on a very regular basis. And then I come across this, that was my vocation, my avocation then being Catholic radio. And what do? I find another government agency, the FCC, that I have to work with. And I think, I must be nuts to do this.
That has occurred to me in the past that you...
and I've been told that, too, by a couple of people. You must be crazy for this, dealing with the government agencies, because they can be very frustrating. But we have a good attorney and engineers that help us on those matters, because these are things you just really can't navigate on your own. When it comes to those, you need those pros, and they know what they're doing, and that's part of being in the radio business, the media business, you have to have the consultants to help you. And just like I help my clients in the accounting world, the tax world, I have to help them navigate through some of the tax laws. We need the FCC or our attorneys to navigate the FCC rules.
And so the Catholic Radio Indy, one more time, give us the contact information if you want to talk about programming or helping out in any way.
Okay, the contact, you can contact Gordon or Val, Patty at the Catholic Radio office. Our office number is 317-870-8400. We're located on 8383 Craig Street in Indianapolis. That's in the Castleton area. And, they're available during the normal business hours. Our Catholic Radio website, catholicradioindy.org, is a good way to certainly reach out to us as well.
As well as to find out the schedule of the programming, right?
Exactly.
And I guess the schedule probably changes from time to time.
We modified it. EWTN doesn't change the schedule a lot, but maybe, like January, we get announcements, it seems like in December from time to time that January they're going to make some realignments here or there. Nothing massive, but they kind of move some things. Well, stations, the programs are created by individuals, and the individuals retire, and so
right.
you have to cycle in some new programs. Sometimes you find something that maybe somebody gets burned out and somebody else wants to get in. So there is some movement along that, but not a lot.
Not a lot.
Good. And we stay tuned with their schedule. We have to move some of our local programs around a little bit to modify some of their changes, just to see what works. And
that local programming versus the syndicated programming, how's that break down percentage-wise on the station, would you say?
10-15% local.
10-15% local, okay.
I think, yes. I think our contract with the EWTN is they want 80%. They're not going to hold us to it. It's just, if we're going to be an affiliate of theirs, we call them an affiliate, they want us to run primarily theirs.
Absolutely.
And we don't abuse that. We don't have the money to go out and recreate that. We are very thankful for the programming that's available on EWTN to us for free.
Okay, and one more time, what are those stations' numbers for the listeners so they can tune in?
89.1 FM will be on the west side of that's the Coatesville area. The 90.9 is based in Noblesville on a tower up on Greenfield Avenue. And then we have 98.3 in Anderson.
So if you're northeast, you want the 90 and the 90, and if you're west, you want the 89.1,
yes.
And if you're south, you might be out of luck a little bit.
Well, 89.1 kind of reaches it. But
it does. Okay.
I mean, it reaches these areas, but you're into what the third tier. There, when you see the maps, the broadcast maps, they generally come in three tiers. The inner tier is the one where you get a rock solid signal. The second one, you get it most of the time, but sometimes you may not. And you get in the third tier, and
it's iffy.
It
can be iffy. But you're working on that.
Yeah, it's been on our target. My south side friends are continually letting me know that the signal doesn't come in very, very well, and we're well aware of that. So we've pushed our other areas. Because the apps have worked very well for us over time, and you can get on. There's a couple of phone numbers that you can contact. You can listen to it anywhere. One of them is 605-562-9822. You can do that on the internet or on your cell phone. And if you don't have charges, I think most of us are on plans and you have unlimited minutes, you can just call up that number.
Okay, listen on your phone.
It's called Audio Now.
That's fabulous to know. I did not know that.
Yeah, so we've pushed that a lot because it's you just use a speakerphone and you get it in for free. And in fact, Jim got that lined up. When we got that lined up, I don't know when that was. It's been some time ago now, maybe 10 years. But I was on a beach somewhere in Massachusetts, I think, in Martha's Vineyard, and he calls me up and says, "We're on the air."
That's really good to know. So we've run out of time. Bob Teipen CPAs and Catholic Radio Indy, thanks for being our guest today. Don't forget, new episodes go up on inspiresmall.biz at 3 o'clock every Monday. Next week, my guest will be Paul Kaiser, who is the new superintendent of the Westfield Schools and a former student of mine at St. Andrew's School and Cathedral High School. I'm really interested in having Paul come on the show. We'll see you then on InspireSmall.biz and the Indy's Trusted Servant Show.